Hello and welcome back to the Rekt Capital channel, and welcome to today's market update about Bitcoin, Ethereum and Litecoin. I hope you're having an awesome day wherever you are in the world. Today, earlier this morning, I woke up to this. Tyler Winklevoss retweeted my tweet and read my article about the Bitcoin halving and its effect on Bitcoin's price action. This is amazing news. It's awesome to see this. Awesome to see Rekt Capital on Tyler Winklevoss's timeline on Twitter. If history repeats itself, Bitcoin will reach 17,000 a few weeks before the Bitcoin halving. And this is something I spoke about in yesterday's video here on YouTube. So check it out if you missed it. The Bitcoin halving and its effect on price is a topic that I've been exploring for the past few weeks and months. So if you'd like to see my full research, it's in the article in the description down below. So that was a great start to my morning. Tyler Winklevoss retweeting my tweet and reading my article. But before we dive into today's market update, once a week is what you guys decided in the poll as to how often you'd like to see me host webinars. So without further ado, next week will be the next live webinar, Thursday, 7 p.m. UTC. I've already got a topic in mind, but I'm going to share that with you guys soon. I'll have more news on that and I'll make the official announcement, so stay tuned on that. And let's dive into today's update. Of course, yesterday I spoke about Bitcoin in a lot more detail, so I'm not really interested in the short-term fluctuations of Bitcoin because I expect it to go to 17,000 a few weeks before the halving. So whatever it's doing now is irrelevant to me because the short-term fluctuations are just noise when we're considering the macro perspective and long-term view for Bitcoin. So this is essentially the monthly order block. This is a historically relevant supply zone on the monthly chart. So if we zoom out to the monthly, we can see that this is the resistance that Bitcoin tends to have some trouble with, and this has been the case in the past right over here. So if we just do this is essentially the resistance area. So we're at that point, 10,400 roughly speaking. So that's where we are at the moment. This is that historical supply zone, but of course Bitcoin isn't letting up. It's trying to retest this supply zone as a new support, but of course it's going to have some trouble here. So that's what's happening in the short term. Any sort of gradual pullback on Bitcoin's price action in the short term is going to mean that people are exiting Bitcoin and entering altcoins. So any gradual pullback for Bitcoin in the short term is very positive for the altcoin market. So in that case, I'm very pleased with what's going on because whenever people are buying Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price goes up. And of course, altcoins prices go down because people are panic selling altcoins. But the moment that Bitcoin stabilizes, pulls back a bit, consolidates, that's when people are more risk seeking and they're more likely to enter altcoins. So initially they chase the Bitcoin pump and then they buy those altcoins at cheaper prices because the panic will have dragged those altcoin prices to much lower levels, to actual bargain levels. Let's move on to Ethereum USD and let's talk about that video that I posted a few weeks back. Why are investors bullish on Ethereum? And they were very right to be bullish on Ethereum. And I think this is when I posted that video and where I spoke about this weekly macro channel for Ethereum. So $160 to $360. This is a historically relevant channel for Ethereum because every time Ethereum breaks past 160 and tests it as a support, we see fireworks go off. So on this first occasion right over here, 160 is held as a support. It breaks up to the upside and reaches 360, 160, 360 again, 160, 360 again. So we are seeing history repeat itself right over here. So at the moment, Ethereum on the weekly chart is at this mid-range, right? So when we're looking at this weekly channel of 160 to 360, this is the midpoint. This is the mid-range for this range. And of course, when it comes to any ranges, the midpoint for a range is often a level of support or resistance. At this point in time for Ethereum USD, it's a resistance, right? We are seeing resistance here. But if we zoom in, and I'm going to zoom into each of these instances on the daily channel, on the daily time frame, just to show you what we're dealing with at the moment. So if we zoom into the daily, this is the first instance, right? So this is going to be these first two instances on the daily. So right over here, we see the break into the 160 channel. The 160 channel is tested as a support, lots of volatility though, and then we see that rally to $260. Of course, Ethereum does try to test this level as a support, but doesn't do it cleanly enough. We see a candle close below it, and we see some volatility all the way probably to 255, 253. In any case, it's not a clean retest of the 260 level, but we see continuation nonetheless. What happens in the second instance? Well, we see a much cleaner breakout and retest. A breakout past 260 and then a wicking retest of 260 into a new support. So beautiful, clean retest right over there. So let's look at the third instance. So if we just zoom out to the weekly, this is going to be the third instance. We've already looked at the first two instances, but let's look at this instance and this instance. So let's zoom in onto the daily. This is the third instance where we're seeing price break past $260, but look at this. It's incredibly messy. It's a lot of volatility, lots of indecision, really bad price action when it comes to respecting this technical level of the mid-range of 260, because if we just cycle back to the previous two instances, okay, this was a little bit, you could say it was unclean, but still relatively good technically speaking. This was a perfect breakout and retest of that level, but this is tragic. This is very messy price action, so I'm just wondering at this point in time, what are we going to see? Because we had two successful retests. Let's just say that this was a good retest as well. We had two clean retests in the past, followed by a very messy one, really, for many, many days. Remember, this is many, many different daily candles, and this could be easily some 2 weeks of price action or something like that. So I'm just wondering, what are we going to see now? Because at this time, we're actually seeing 260 want to be tested as a new support. So essentially speaking, Ethereum can either very cleanly retest this like it did in the past on two previous occasions. It can make a very nice clean retest and then rally to 360, or it can have a very volatile situation over here. But the reason I'm mentioning this is, number one, it's very likely that we're just going to see 360 become revisited for the fourth time in Ethereum's price history. And number two is, don't worry about the short-term fluctuations in Ethereum's price, because we might see a clean retest, but we might see a lot of volatility as well. So just bear that in mind. It's very useful to just cling on to this sort of piece of research when, if we do see a strong rejection around here and we do see that volatility, just bear in mind that this research can be an oak tree on a very windy day. This is, of course, how I approach my research. You want to make objective, level-headed, and logical conclusions about price action, so when the emotional times come, just look to those pieces of research and understand that this was done in very good faith, and to just wait those tough days out, essentially speaking. So Ethereum does look like it's on the way to 360. I'm just curious about the fashion in which it will do that. Moving on to Ethereum BTC, this is of course something I spoke about also in the Ethereum video before. We saw a breakout past this wedging structure. It broke past the 200 exponential moving average. So that was fantastic, because every time we see Ethereum BTC break past the 200 daily moving average, fireworks go off. But having said that, we also see a pullback. So every time Ethereum BTC broke past the 200 daily EMA, it would rally around 21 to 25% before pulling back. And this is something that I included in my analysis, that we'd see a breakout to the upside for around 17 to 25% rally or gain, and then a pullback. But at the moment, Ethereum BTC has exceeded my expectations. It's gone against the grain of history, which is really positive news, to be honest. I can't be mad at this. But of course, it is important to just protect myself from downside just in case we see that retrace later on. It's okay to open yourself to upside, but for me, Ethereum BTC overextending itself past this level of resistance will be a little bit unnatural. It will be overextending itself. It wouldn't be a healthy, sustainable rally if it were to do that without a correction. Of course, it is trying to do something that Ethereum USD is doing as well. So Ethereum BTC is trying to flip this resistance into a new support. So we can see that with the long downward wick past this level. So it is mimicking its USD counterpart, but Ethereum BTC hasn't had that pullback. So if that pullback doesn't happen, that's okay. I just want to protect myself from downside. So if it does start to retrace, I get stopped out in very good profit that I wouldn't have otherwise had if I immediately sold here, but profit a little bit higher. Not too much higher, but in any case, still a few percentage points higher. So I'm just wondering, will we see that pullback in the short term? Because we have seen that in the past, a strong rally to the upside followed by a pullback to the 200 daily EMA, and then afterwards, that's when Ethereum BTC goes on an absolute tear. And it's very easy to get caught up in the emotions, right? Because if we're thinking about, okay, in the past, Ethereum, every time it broke past the 200 daily EMA, it would go on a absolute moonshot. And it's very easy to get carried away when you see this sort of price action and you're thinking, oh wow, what if that moonshot is happening now, right? I'm sure you guys are thinking exactly the same thing, because I'm thinking that as well. And that's the thing, all of us looking at this chart are probably going to be thinking, wow, is this moonshot actually coming much earlier, right? Is it coming much earlier than expected? And that's something that can get in the way. That's the sort of psychology that can really impede your investing and trading strategy. So what I'm just going to do, protect myself from downside and just wait for that potential retrace. If it doesn't come, that's fine. But if it does, then I'm more than ready for it. Either way, I'm very excited for what happens, whether that's going up or down. I have a plan for both situations, and there we go. Moving on to Litecoin BTC, if you'd like to check out why I'm bullish on Litecoin, check out the video right over here, because that's a fantastic chart right here. I mean, I'm just going to briefly mention Litecoin BTC because, of course, I did speak about it in so much more detail in that video. This is the historical accumulation period for Litecoin BTC. Every time we see Litecoin BTC dip into this region, we see price go up. So let's cycle a few weeks back. Initially, I was waiting for this weekly candle close to just close above this historical accumulation area. It did that. So then I wanted it to retest the top of this accumulation box as a new support on the weekly, and it did that. That was a beautiful candle close. And then in the third week, I wanted it to hold above this accumulation box. I wanted that support to really just showcase price strength confirmation and then allow the buyers and demand to flow into the market. And this is what we're seeing. Beautiful candlestick price action. The psychology here is beautiful. It's something that I talk about in my technical analysis course. It's awesome price action. I'm really excited about it, and I am bullish on Litecoin BTC. I just can't help it, because when I look at the chart, then it is all bullish to me, and so far the technical signs are right there. So awesome for Litecoin BTC. I'm just going to wait for continuation and for this rally to really materialize, because if you guys remember from the past few days and weeks, Litecoin wasn't really one of the strongest gainers. We saw other altcoins, particularly Ethereum, really outperform Bitcoin, but I think Litecoin is going to be catching up in the coming days and weeks. And that's about it for today's video. Of course, I'm going to just mention this altcoin Kyber network. This was an altcoin that I spoke about in my altcoin TA session from a few days back, because we saw a flag right over here, and people who attended that session will know what I'm talking about, because we spotted this flag right over here together. And I remember I even said, wow, this is right down my alley, and look what happened. 30% to the upside. That was a beautiful breakout. to the upside for Kyber Network. So if you haven't checked out that altcoin TA session, the link to that session is in the description down below. Check it out because quite a lot of altcoins have popped off since then. But of course, even just for educational purposes, it was a really great session to just dig deep into and try and analyze the charts and understand that psychology. I had so much fun in that live stream. Thank you so much to everybody who attended it. But of course, the live webinar next week, 7 p.m. UTC. I have a topic in mind. I'll announce that officially very soon, but stay tuned. And having said that, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, please leave a like. Of course, subscribe for more videos in the future because I'm more than happy to keep sharing this content as long as you guys find value in it. So please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm Rekt Capital and I'll speak to you soon.